What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Split Screen D&D, the place where we're attacking all things Dungeons & Dragons from both sides of the screen. As always, my name's Tom Quinn, resident Dungeon Master here at Modern Myth.
And I am Josh Winans, resident player character here at Modern Myth. So, Tom.
Okay, let's do this.
Sorry, I had a couple beers. So, the future of D&D is a very interesting one that seems to be painted by the people at WotC. Is that how you say it? WotC. And where they're really pushing the virtual tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel as maybe we're getting to that age where we're like, no, it's got to be this way. You young kids, you don't know how, like,
or like, how do I unlock my phone? Like what?
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard to say, like, in person, in real life play at a table is to me the purest form. But there's obviously a very strong argument for the counter. So I think it'd be fun to explore. Let's see. Maybe through talking about it, we can kind of shift our position.
Okay.
And maybe through the comments. Speaking of comments.
In that case, you guys should do it. You should comment. You should like. You should subscribe. You should do all those awesome things that the YouTube overlords love, because it pays us sweet dividends. Not yet, but at some point,
one day.
We hugely appreciate all the support. So
thank you guys so much.
And whether you are subscribed, active in the comments, in whatever way you're engaging with the channel, we love it. But it does mean the world to us. It tells YouTube that you like what we're doing and you want to see more of it by hitting any of those subscriptions, thumbs ups, bells, what have you. If you want to help support us directly in Split Screen, or I should say in Split Screen, and all of the other aspects of the channel, DM and the PM and the Rakish Rovers, you can jump over to patreon.com/modmyth, and you can support us directly that way. So
please, thank you.
Yeah, huge thanks to everyone who is already just on top of that subscription and comment game. And I do think what we're going to hear some interesting thoughts, because I think this is a topic that we're of a reasonably like mind.
Yeah.
Which I know we don't all, we try to kind of shy away from topics that we
just straight up agree on,
that we feel similarly on. But I think we often find, even on topics where we think we might disagree more, we find a meeting of the minds that is not always the case with the commenters. So change our minds a little bit. If you hear us saying some things and you want to.
No, we always learn from you guys. Like,
a tremendous amount.
Absolutely.
So on the topic of in real life D&D versus virtual D&D, or more specifically, I think obviously we're giving a nod, I think at this point, to the 1D&D announcements.
All hail 1D&D.
But I think we're also talking about Fantasy Grounds, Roll20.
Right. This isn't an overnight thing. This has been happening for a long time.
Right. And I think that there are absolutely pros and cons.
Absolutely.
And I think let's get after some of those.
Okay.
Did you want me to start? Or you want to start? Where are you at on this one?
You know what? Let's explore the positive. Do you want to explore the positives first of virtual? I think that might be more healthy, because I don't want to come off like coming hot.
Well, I will say, I think it probably goes without saying that we live pretty firmly in the real life, sitting around the table camp.
Not saying though that we don't understand that there are benefits and good things about virtual.
Yeah, I think let's get after it. I think the context of this conversation, in my mind, anyways, is I think there is going to be a very concerted effort from Wizards of the Coast to drive more and more of the player base into a virtual space. And, so obviously speculative, but some number of years down the road, when someone says, hey, do you play Dungeons and Dragons? What they're going to mean is, do you log into a virtual tabletop and
do you play battle.net D&D style? Yeah.
I guess that's not a bad way of thinking about it. So, what are those? I think talking about a little bit about those implications and the pros and cons of those spaces. So fire us off some I think some obvious
there's
pros.
some obvious pros that can't be denied. I think the first thing is The because I always think of comparing it to couch co-op versus online.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a reasonable comparison.
which might be interesting because I mean I think online has done so much positive. I don't think it's replaced couch co-op. It makes me very sad that it's hard to find good couch co-op games.
I'm gonna say there's probably a large subset of people watching this right now
Yeah.
who are going, "What the hell is couch co-op?"
Oh, you haven't sat next to the person you're playing a game with, like literally sat next on the couch, so
Just sweeping their legs
yeah,
over
oh,
and
dude,
over.
you
Oh
beat
my
me, and just pounding him
God.
on the shoulder, like it turns into almost a boxing match / video game. Oh, those are my happiest moments of my child. Not the happiest, but I have very positive moments.
I think that does serve to illustrate kind of the broader point that we're talking about here is even now that consoles are a network device where more play is taking place over a network online.
Yep.
Whereas, consoles used to be the domain of couch co-op, or maybe you were LAN partying, which was pretty sweet.
That was
time
pretty
too.
freaking dope too.
but it's just a deal where that is gone the way of the dinosaur, and I really think there's going to be obviously your old school holdouts. You're going to have holdouts really, I think, right up to 5th edition. And then from there forward, I really think you're going to be finding yourself in a space. But it's going to be interesting that there will be a point where people are going to go like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Come over and play Dungeons and Dragons?" That's.
But so to sing its praises about virtual space, I have my brother-in-law is one of my very great friends, and he lives in a totally different town. I would in a perfect world, we play couch co-op, but I have a kid. He has a job. The odds of us ever getting... So, hey.
You have a job as well.
Yeah, kind of. Actually, I will be bringing up my job later about talking about this subject. I'm a music teacher in public schools. But for us to be able to just, hey, man, you want to go on a hey, Thursday night, it's guy night. We're logging on, and we're playing some video games for a couple hours. And we can hang out. Even though we're separated, we never be able to do it otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's just such a... So distance is negligible with the wonders of the internet.
Right. And that's a particularly potent pro to be massively illiterate on that string of words. Because we're acknowledging it, and Colorado is no slouch for finding a D&D group that's but there are places in the world where that could be a very, very difficult undertaking.
Yes.
Maybe a near impossible undertaking to find a table, and not just a table, but a table you want to be at.
Right.
And do it in person. And so huge things to be said, not just for like that access, but if I sat down and say I was like, you know what, these rovers, fuck these guys, I'm so sick of playing with those guys, I'm gonna go find a new table. I've got a lot of legwork to find a group of people that I want to play with in a proximity.
Yep.
That is, and that's not to say that there wouldn't be legwork in a virtual space, but absolutely there.
It's just the pool of candidates is so much greater.
And we've harped on so many times, if you're not crazy about the table that you're at, if you're not crazy about, if you're DMing a table and you're just like, we're just not jiving, we want different things out of the game. I mean, there's no way you could argue that expanding your access to a massive player base, a massive DM base, doesn't inherently improve your odds of finding that Goldilocks table that you really want to be your long-term table. So no question there, I think is I would say DM side, I think there's a bit of a trade-off here because I think the tools are getting more and more robust.
Okay.
So I know we're talking pros, but I think it's existing in a space right now.
It didn't even last, like, you didn't get
No, I'm going to give it as a pro because I do think the tools are finally catching up.
Yeah.
That are allowing these virtual games to be run near as seamlessly as you might have them run at a live table. That now
We're talking about pros. We're talking about pros.
No, this is why I say I think that they're getting there. A great example is a long time ago. This is predating companies manifesting these tool sets. We attempted a virtual campaign, and it was an abject failure because
we didn't have the tools.
The tools that we hobbled together, simply made it not fun.
Yeah.
It was not fun to run the game. Nope. It was not fun to play the game. So why I'm saying I'm definitely counting this in the pros category is a need has been identified for people to be able to run games long distance smoothly. And a lot of people are investing themselves into developing the tools to allow that to happen.
Very true.
I absolutely think that's coming around. Again, from the little bit that we've seen of 1D&D's tabletop,
it looks good.
I think that in terms of running the game, it's going to impress.
All hail 1D&D, baby.
But I will talk about the other edge of that blade when we get to the other side. But I think I think that the tools are finally coming into their own. I think the tools have came into their own over the last few years. Yeah. COVID really pushed that to the forefront.
Yes.
And talk about another opportunity. Like, honestly, if I had to choose between just not playing throughout all of COVID or playing virtually, I'd take another hack at it. And I think I would be impressed by what's available now.
Yes.
But a lot of my feelings about virtual were tarnished by let's call it a overzealous early adoption of the technology.
I forget what program we used.
It was bad.
Thing.
It was bad.
And it was 4E too on top of that. But and yet, we were playing 4E. I was playing Tarsh.
Oh yeah, it had to have been. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, dude, if you would have reached high levels, you know me. I broke the game. 4E could really break the game.
Well, as it happens, we abandoned that rapidly.
Yeah, so now I'm living in the world of 5E where you can still break the game. Anyway, so
I think if you're intent on it, you can.
Oh yeah,
there's some more than others.
But my gosh, yeah. So
other pros. You got other pros?
So I just want to go through my pros because I think we've covered them all in like the first 5 minutes. So distance is great. Scheduling.
I can't believe that this wasn't our first hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the table killer.
Yep.
Logistics and scheduling. Yeah, 100%.
So
I mean, go run with it. But
it's one of those things like, all right, especially as you become adults and have like the wee little ones running around, you can't exactly leave.
Right.
So, hey, instead of I put the baby down, put the kids down, I go downstairs, I log into my PC while they're already asleep. Now I can play some D&D. Otherwise, you'd have to hire a babysitter. And holy crap, our babysitter is expensive. What the hell happened? Anyway,
that's the next episode. Is
I just rail on
how the hell did babysitters get so inflated? Next time on Split Screen D&D.
I bet you all relate to that subject. But like it's like for me it'd be like in certain situations it'd be I couldn't do it. And like again, I guess distance covers into it. Like it's just so nice being like when does your schedule line up in the next month? At this time, hey, we could all make that work. It's 4:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
We can make that work.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, even if it's a deal where, like from us to Denver, about an hour.
Yeah, and that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about running a D&D session at 6:00.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone wants to come from Denver down. They're leaving their place at 5, running a 3-4 hour session, and then they got an hour back. I mean, hopefully we'd be good enough friends we'd let them crash here, but I also might be like, I don't even know.
Sleep in your car.
I don't even know why you showed up. Like it was just like a nice gesture to invite you. Like, why are you here? No, I think it doesn't take a lot of distance to rapidly remove because Dungeons and Dragons is already, or any TTRPG is already a pretty substantial time commitment on a session by session basis, and so when you start stacking in these other elements, I mean, I 100% well, like when Daryl and Lindsay come down from Denver,
Right.
they come down for the whole weekend, and we
Just
smash as much as we can into it. Because
you guys like the Smash when you're there.
well, so they're here on weekends. You and I got Tuesday.
Good. I was about to get jealous, but okay. As long as we got Tuesdays.
We're here Tuesdays. Let's do it.
The camera's rolling, bud.
But that to me is really the, I will say, I've said it on a number of occasions that onboarding new players and one of my favorite aspects of running the game is getting to bring new players into the hobby.
Yes.
I think it's a really cool thing to be able to do. And while my preference will always be sitting them down at the table alongside, because I think it is a fundamentally social experience. And
yeah, we'll talk about that in the pros of
Yeah.
the other song. But yeah,
I know there's all sorts of people, even just recently that I was talking to, my cousins and people who, again, it's going to be a couple hour drive, and they've actively been looking for a group, but they haven't found. And if it's the difference between us being able to run a one shot or like a few level campaign, something,
Yep.
and not, again, it's kind of a lot like what we said about 5th edition in general. Is it's been this gateway, and if you have someone who their options are, I just won't get into TTRPGs, or now through virtual means I have the ability to explore this hobby.
Yeah.
I think the hobby lives and dies by the people who are in it.
Anything dies.
Well,
like
no,
goes and
yeah,
dies. But yeah. So yeah, it's casting a wide net and try to catch as many people as it can,
Right.
which is only benefit you're absolutely right. Any people you can bring into the hobby only benefits the hobby.
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
That's everything I can say nice about.
All right, hold on. I got scheduling, distance, and lack of players, which we've covered all that.
We've covered all of those.
Those are my
and the thing is that we've actually kind of set this up like we were going to shit on.
No, it is about
VTTs.
yeah.
I actually think that. I think basically everything we just laid out are all really solid reasons to
Very
consider those platforms.
And here's the thing, like as my wife and I were talking about this subject, and we might be very ignorant, and I acknowledge that because we prefer that. Hey, those of you who run virtual games and have great success with it, please put in the comments what you've done to make it a very successful experience. Because we always want to learn more, especially because you're going to be running the
100%. Well, I have been. I've run 3 sessions of it now.
You guys have run 3 sessions? How? When do you have the time to do this stuff, man?
Every Wednesday, baby. Literally this week, every evening I've got something D&D Modern Myth related.
Man, all right.
That's how we do, baby.
Yeah,
no,
you're crazy.
But actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience.
Please do.
Because I think that it has helped to reshape some of my thoughts on the virtual tabletop. But yeah, I think to kind of all of the credit and all of those pros in the virtual space, I think that one of the things I love most about tabletop RPGs in general, it wouldn't even have to be tabletop RPGs, board games, card games, couch co-op. I mean, couch co-op starts walking a line, but but by comparison to, say, online co-op, there are very few opportunities to engage in a hobby that demands, and we've said this before, but in the context of this conversation, it's worth repeating, to engage in hobbies that demand that you, a physical human being, put yourself in the presence of other physical human beings you enjoy being in the presence of.
Right.
And you sit down and you do it. And I don't think there will ever come a point, for the exact same reason that social media is not the same thing as socializing.
Oh my gosh.
They're very different things.
Yes.
Now, that is not to say that there aren't inherent values to the technology, but I think the idea that you can ever, and I mean ever, emulate, there will always be an uncanny valley that exists between the experience that you will drum up, and that may be a very, very narrow valley, but the experiences that you will drum up in a virtual environment and the ones you will drum up real life. And I think that's so ingrained in us, in our DNA as social organisms,
I want to talk about that. Yes.
that that we know the difference
Mhm.
between exchanging a text message and talking on the phone. We know the difference between talking on the phone and standing
Yes.
in
It's
person
even
to person.
talking on the phone and standing in front of a human being. And
Yeah.
which I want to get into.
And I think when you consider the vast array of social skills and just taxation on, and taxation sounds like a negative thing. I don't mean it that way. Let's say
So you're for taxes. That's good to know.
implementation of all of those things that connect you to other human beings,
Right. Oh, God.
and there's so few opportunities, not only to just do that,
Uh-huh.
but that demand that you do it, and you do it well, and you do it with finesse, and you do it with, I mean, it really kind of begs the best version of those parts of you show up at the table every time.
Yeah.
And I think that you know well, as much as you might pretend it's not there, when there's a screen dividing you, when it's words on a screen instead of words spoken with inflection and for all of those reasons, I mean, that's thoroughly why I live in that camp.
Yeah.
So kind of to your point in the comments, I would be very curious to hear people who are running essentially fundamentally in the virtual space now. Can you appreciate that perspective? Like, do you feel like something is lost in that experience?
Yeah.
There might also be some people out there who have only run virtual.
Right.
So, I know that you were chomping at the bit to jump on that. So,
we're gonna have to change tracks. Are we down to talk about the IRL, the in real life?
oh, I thought that's where we were at.
Yay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
I figured it was, but I just want to make sure.
I hope so, because I think that's what I was just talking.
You were
about.
talking about it for a while, and you hit on so many things I want to talk about. So, God. All right, I don't want to go grandiose right from the beginning. I'll hit with what you said. So I mentioned my profession at the beginning of this episode. I'm a music teacher in a public school. And during the COVID years, we had to teach virtually, which means with Zoom, we had Zoom, and
but you didn't have the 1D&D tabletop to aid you in the endeavor, did you?
No.
Okay, well, case in point, 1D&D.
So I
Hail 1 and D&D.
not only did I teach public school, I taught K through 5. So that means kindergarten through 5th grade. And I cannot stress to you how different it is for me to stand in front of 20 to 30 young kids and try to teach them about music in some way, shape, or form, and try to do it through a screen. If we would have gone longer, I would have quit. Like, any joy of teaching was sapped from me during those years.
So, can you elaborate? Like, what was it about that experience that resulted in disconnect? And even better, can you tie that to
D&D.
the D&D side? Because I mean, I get it 100%. I get why that might be the case.
There's a lot of things, and I'll try to. I think the biggest thing is, so we've talked about this before. When you perform music live to an audience, there's an exchange of energy. When you are trying to teach a screen or talk to a screen or to have that interaction with the screen, you lose that. I don't get any energy. So it turns into me talking to a screen and me getting lifeless interactions back. Now, that might be an extreme example, but even if you're like, we have interactions, it pales in comparison to being in real life, to being able to read the body language, not just the facial, everything. We as human beings are trained. We have to, in order to exist in society, to interpret nonverbal communication. And that is lost so much through staring at a computer screen. And
purely by the brevity of information of this.
That's all we get. Like, we don't know what else is going on. And it's a hollow. I'm getting on a soapbox way too early. And I'm sorry for those of you who really, truly enjoy virtual. And please, if you enjoy it, please continue. I feel like it's a hollow experience compared to in real life communication. I just don't think you can. Just because I went through 2 years of it, I just don't think it is a thing.
Right. Right. Well, I think that I'm very curious to hear from those who uh, will counter that position. But I really do think even if you love the virtual space, and I will readily admit that I have garnered a greater appreciation for it in running now I've been talking about for the last few episodes, this sci-fi campaign that really was kind of just an opportunity, a little context for anyone watching. A buddy of mine from Washington State, we lived out there for 6 years, and he's come out every year since we moved back. And
hi, Jake, if you're watching.
Yeah, Jake, what's up, man? But he, one of the years he came back was kind of his first introduction to D&D, and it went splendidly. We ended up running a one shot. We took him through the kind of we gave him a proper D&D tutorial kind of in game.
That was fun.
As we're and he really took to it, and he's an awesome player. And this time when he was out, we ran this, what we knew was not really a one shot. It was just going to be as long as it could be while he was out. And and it was kicking off this kind of 5th edition OSR vibe sci-fi game. Well, we got to a place where both he and Amanda had kind of said, like, this would be kind of cool to keep going. And I initially was kind of going like, I've played this game before. I mean, I'll give it a shot for you, but I can tell you right now that I've had less than stellar experience. And so the one thing I really wanted to touch on in the context of that is, we have now been running these sessions virtually. I'll say partially in person, partially virtually. He is, I should say, the virtual player. And I will say that to some extent, this is simply my lack of experience with the tools that are available. And also the fact that I'm not going to invest the bandwidth to master those tools.
Right.
I'm sure there's people out there, especially dungeon masters who are out there, who've been rolling Roll20 for years, and
wizards.
and they are more comfortable there than maybe at a IRL table anymore. More power to you. And this is not to say that those tools can't be wielded in that fashion. But what I have found is virtually no attrition by way of, or I'll say a negligible amount of attrition by way of any of the portions of the game that would be operating in the theater of the mind space. Because effectively, or I should say, the level of attrition that you might have in the difference between you and I sitting having this conversation, and let's say some circumstance at some point required that you and I Discorded in or Skyped in or Zoomed in or what have you, to do an episode. Like one of us was out of town, but we still wanted to record an episode.
Right.
Obviously, something is lost, but would we be able to have a conversation and complete the episode? And so I've garnered a greater appreciation. How many?
I don't know, man. It's something I think I'm allergic to in this.
You better be careful, because Jay Frazier is going to give you a blessing. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't Jay Frazier. Nope. I apologize.
No,
it was Linda the Gamer Gal.
Thank you, Linda.
And so I will say I've garnered a greater appreciation. The issue that I have is, unless I'm willing to invest that bandwidth on top of running my in real life games to garner a certain mastery or proficiency over the tools necessary when I go to break out.
Jesus.
I'm
sorry.
When I go to break out a battle map and break out the tokens and all of that, what is already a relatively sluggish component of 5e becomes unbearably so. But we've had great success simply running everything theater of the mind.
Right.
And there's been, no real major complaints. It doesn't change the fact that at some point I'm going to want to bust out the minis. I'm going to want to bust out the battle map.
Right.
And I know that experience is going to suffer, or I'm going to pony up and really
learn the
system. And so again, this kind of falls in the cons, kind of falls into the pros category. Like I was saying, I think the tools are there.
Yes.
But it's another system, quote unquote, to learn. And when I have the choice between investing myself into the in real life space or the virtual space,
Right.
I have very little inclination to I've got 20 other things I could be doing
Right.
with that time. So
Yeah. Time is the greatest resource, man, I tell you.
yeah. So that kind of, I think, is I was fully prepared when we originally talked about this concept. This was pre running these sessions for Jake
Right.
long distance, to have not a lot to say to redeem it. But I do think that if you were running, let's say, purely a social game or a game in which everyone understood that the combat was all going to be theater of the mind, I would have very little hesitation to adopt that as a technology. But so that's kind of
yeah. I'll go grandiose then.
oh.
So we've talked about
what was the last one? I felt like that was reasonably grandiose.
No, that was basic.
Oh
shit.
hell!
I'm sorry, dude.
Hell.
So
Let's go.
because I'm gonna go. So we've talked about this a couple of times. The history of humanity, when we go back X amount of years, when we're just hanging around a
pre-Twitter.
Was there a pre-Twitter? I don't. I think humanity began at Twitter.
All right, continue.
No,
so long as we're on the same page.
No, geez, no. God, that makes me sad just saying that. We're talking about like civilizations kind of maybe just starting out. We're hanging around the fire. This is the meeting place. Everyone gathers around the fire.
Yeah.
I think there's. I have a friend who is absolutely loves fires for that reason. It's there is something that is almost instinctual.
That's called pyromania, by the way.
No, not just. He's not like throwing fire and trying to. He loves the act of building a fire and having people gather around it, which I totally agree with. There's an almost instinctual thing about that. And what do you do when you gather around the fire? You shoot the shit, right? Okay. What is D&D? We're gathering around a fire. What is a fire? A table, right? And we're shooting the shit. We're making stories together in real life. And on top of that, a lot of tables will break bread together. We'll bring snacks. We'll bring food, which only brings more socialization. Like, you are scratching an itch that is ingrained into us as Homo sapiens. And that is something that I don't think can ever be matched on a virtual thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't think you can emulate it.
I don't think you can. It's like trying to get your validation through Twitter. If you're going to Twitter and being like, am I a good person? Let me ask Twitter. And people are like, yeah, you're a good person. Versus your best friend looking you in the eye and say, you know what, man? You're a good human being. I'm glad I got to know you.
Thanks, buddy.
I was acting. That was superficial.
Such a good role player. You're so good. Just keep going.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally joking. But the difference there, I don't think can be understated, and to act like it's not. Now, I don't want to say like, hey, I find value in online things. I find value in that, but and there you might find yourself in situations where you need to do that stuff, and I don't want to be like, no, it's either this way or you're an idiot and a loser. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to say that the experiences are the same, I think you just can't say that.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. I mean, I would love to hear from someone who is living in the opposite camp.
Yes, please do. And I don't mean to offend you.
But and I think I agree. It's what I truly believe. I do not think that experience can be emulated virtually. That is not to say, I mean, in our lives, there's all sorts of times. If you have to choose between not keeping up with your brother-in-law or doing so virtually,
right?
What do you choose?
Yeah, definitely going to do it virtually.
And I think there's always kind of the lesser of two evils,
right.
And I'm framing virtual tabletops in a non-flattering way here, and that's not my intent.
Yeah,
it's just that I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
If you guys moved away and all of a sudden I was without a player base, and my first instinct is going to be like, well, I should see if there's anyone around here that wants to play.
Yep.
And if I find out that I just cannot stand playing with the immediate players around here, or they're not forthcoming because I live somewhere that just does not have a substantial player base, I mean, your options literally are hang up a hobby you might love.
Yep.
And one of the pros that we listed was, you know, this hobby lives and dies by the people who are invested in it. And to some extent, I would actually say, if you're someone out there who, you know, I imagine there's people out there who we'll see in the comments who do regularly play virtual tabletop.
Yes.
But not because it's their preference.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I've talked to a lot of people who play 5e, not because it's their preference,
but just
because it makes the game more accessible.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember who left the comment. I'm not. I don't want to misquote somebody, but But the comment effectively was like 5e is my main game, but not because it's the system I love the most. It's because I can play basically once every other month. Or I say, you know, twice a month, I can play AD&D, or I can play 3 games a week of 5th edition.
Right.
And, you know, like when it comes to running the game, I can spend the money on the 5th edition books and get 3 games a week out of it, or spend the money on the,
that's a
you know,
good
I mean,
point too.
that was their position. And so
very logical.
I think people make concessions all the time for the things they love. And if you love this hobby, you know, like I said, it's certainly nothing that we've said here, I think, is to denigrate how you experience the hobby.
And I did
at all.
go through a rant, and I can't.
You were a dick, man. You seem like you hate people who
I do. I hate you if you.
No. I really think it's a deal where, and to some extent, I mean, there's going to be people out there, I have no doubt, that are going to say, this is what I run because XYZ.
Right.
I wish it was in real life, but this is
more power to you.
And to some extent, my hat's almost more off to you in that regard, because I don't know, like if I might just find myself burning out and I'm not partaking in the hobby if I didn't have, you know, because I put so much value on the in real life.
Yeah. And you're blessed having such good players. I mean, what if you don't have such good players?
The thing about my blessings is that they all land in just I've never wanted for anything on the player side. I've really never wanted for anything, period. You know, it's just
you're welcome.
It's
you know what, I do what I can.
You know,
I think my turkey should win awards.
Okay.
No, if you get that reference, you're my new best friend.
If someone, for those who didn't catch it, he said, I think my turkey should win awards.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Drop a different line in the comments if you catch that. You are my hero if you catch that reference. But no, I mean, I mean, I think we've kind of
we've arrived, I feel.
Yeah. And in terms of summary, I don't know that any more needs to be said simply than kind of the outline that you gave. I really do think, in fact, it was to some extent the inspiration for the name of the channel is we really do think of coming together to play this game. And I don't like that verbiage, because I think it really is the experience is whatever system you're playing, whether it's D&D, whether it's whether it's any edition of D&D, whether it's any TTRPG, you know how powerful those experiences can be. And I don't think that's a fluke. I mean, I really think something is firing inside you that has been longing to be tapped since as long as we have been walking upright, you know, in many regards. And so I really do think, that I don't think we need to say much more than that. That's the kernel of our position.
Yeah.
You got anything on the? We actually didn't attack this one so much from the DM and the player side.
Yeah.
I think both kind of have their unique challenges.
Yes,
but
for sure.
I think most everything that you hit on from the player side, I couldn't
translate.
I was just nodding and
Yeah,
going, like, yes, I
think,
agree with.
I think it's just players in the hobby, whether you're the DM or PC, you are a player of the hobby, and I think this is a transcends. It transcends the screen a little bit. You know,
It does, and I like that. I like that verbiage. I don't know if you had one in mind for a takeout on this.
I don't.
I guess I was just gonna take it out old school.
Do it old school, baby.
This one's going out to everybody. Well, like we said, whatever that is that resonates inside all of us when we're sitting around, whether that be at physical tables or virtual tables, but whatever it is that is triggering and keeps you coming back as a player or as a DM. You know, more power to you in pursuing that in whatever fashion you find allows you to tap into that. So thank you guys so much for joining us this time. Until next time, the world is yours.